Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Today my guest is Hedy Schleifer, and she's internationally known, renowned relationship builder. And she dedicated her whole life to relational intelligence, to building, sustaining relationships, to helping couples in that, and also working with her husband, Yumi, husband of 55 years in this relational field, and then sharing that with the world. And she also created a movie, Crossing the Bridge, which is incredible and makes me cry each time I watch this movie. And also a method encounter-centered transformation. So I'm really, really grateful that you are here today.
Thank you so much, Kasia.
Would you like to add something to?
You know, I didn't expect it, but you don't know that since you've looked at my resume, my beautiful beloved husband died. And we were married 57 years, so now it'll be 59. You know, I continue to count because I feel him very present, and I miss him terribly.
I was reading some of your blog posts recently.
Yes,
Yeah, I learned.
yes.
Okay, so before we go into our conversation, and I'm really sorry that it happened, and I know that it's a big transition, big transformation.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Yes, Kasia.
Yes, so before we go into conversation, if you can, if you are not driving, please close your eyes and just for a moment focus on your inner world. Just feel your breath that is coming into your body, that is grounding you in your body. For a moment, feel the quality of your breath and how it shapes your current reality and this moment. And feel your world, feel what's moving in you. Maybe you have some pain, maybe you have some emotions. Just observe them, just let them be. Just embrace them with love and compassion. All the thoughts that are moving through. Check if you can take a breath into your belly. If it's easy or it's difficult. And for a moment, send some love into your physical body, emotional body, mental body. From your spirit, from your essence. And feel how it is to be alive in this moment. And once again, turn your attention into your breath. And whenever you are ready, open your eyes. Welcome again. So I would like to start with this question: what is alive in you right now? You said a little bit before we started recording this, but
Right now, you're asking, what is alive in me right now? And yeah, it was a wonderful meditation because it's so important to remember our essence, our human essence, and to remember to breathe and that we are alive in this moment and that we are blessed with a very rich journey. Because as I was telling you, I'm I'm hurting our world right now. I feel like we are at a juncture in our world that's actually dangerous for our beautiful planet and for us as people. And we need our connections, our loving connections, even more than ever to sustain them and nourish them and embrace them, because the forces that are destroying and that are at war are quite strong at this time. I was truly innocently believing that we are moving to more consciousness and more connection and more delight and more embrace of our humanity. And then we are facing a very, very challenging time. And it fills me, with layers and layers and layers of emotions, some from my past and some from now and some about the future. I am emotionally overwhelmed with what is occurring. And so the meditation was really very important because I it inspired me to keep doing it, to keep breathing, because I find myself stopping breathing, that I really do. So to keep breathing, to keep being grateful for life itself, to keep connecting with the core, the good human core of who we are, as humans. And so it was a wonderful meditation to start our conversation today.
I'm glad. Yeah, you wrote and you usually say that the world peace begins with relationships and it
Right,
begins at home. And you
right,
had this dream all your life, you still probably have this dream of
right.
creating these little laboratories at
Yes,
home that would spread. Can you say a little bit more about this? How can we achieve world peace by?
yes. It's a wonderful question to begin with. And I'd like to start it with a quote from a Nobel Prize winning chemist by the name of Ilya Prigogine. And Ilya Prigogine says, when a system is in disarray, small islands of coherence in a sea of chaos have the capacity to lift the whole system to a higher level. And so small islands of coherence are our relationships, for example. Two people who build a deeply loving, peaceful, embracing relationship is a small island of coherence. And of course, every small group that gets together in the service of humanity is a small island of coherence. And so it's a beautiful thing to remember that a small island of coherence and another one and another one and another one have the capacity to lift the whole system to a higher level. And so Yumi and I used to really visualize 90 million couples crossing the bridge to each other in their small living laboratory, because when 3% of the population does something, it becomes an epidemic. So it's true also in the sense of an illness or etc., but it's true also in the sense of good stuff. When 3% of the population does something good, it becomes an epidemic. And we were dreaming of this epidemic of loving couples, crossing the bridge, getting to know each other deeply, honoring, respecting, loving one another. And the epidemic would lift the whole system to a higher level. And so that is our vision.
The beautiful vision. And with your movie, because I learned about you from Hania and Witek, and
Right.
they asked me many years ago to translate this movie into Polish, which I did. So that's
Mhm.
how I learned about you. And yes, I just admire their work. Um, So what is crossing the bridge? Maybe you can say a little bit about this.
Absolutely. So the guiding principle of what Yumi and I have taught, and I continue to teach now, with his encouragement, I can feel him going, go, Hedy, go, keep going, keep going. You know, the basic guiding principle is that there are three invisible connectors that connect us as humans every time. And the three invisible connectors are, number one, the relational space between us. So it's invisible, but it's palpable. When the space is polluted the way it is now on our planet, we feel the pollution. Even if we're not part of the pollution, we can feel the pollution in the space between. And as an invisible connector, we are each responsible for the quality of the space between us, and that we live in our relationship in that space. The first person who named that space is the Jewish philosopher by the name of Martin Buber, who wrote the beautiful book, I and Thou. I in the divine sense of the word, thou, you in the divine sense of the word, and is the space between us. And he said that our relationships live in the space between us. It doesn't live in you or in me, or even in our dialogue. It lives in a space we're both responsible for. And he said that space is sacred. It's a sanctuary. And it is our role and our duty to sanctify that space. So that's one invisible connector. And so each time we are with anyone, thinking about how do I enrich the space? How do I make the space safe? How do I make it joyful or loving or connecting? You know, what do I contribute so that the space between us is really sacred? So that's one invisible connector. The second invisible connector is a bridge. So there's a bridge between us and between people. And the reason there is a bridge is because each one of us is a unique world with a unique language, with a unique culture, with a unique rhythm, with unique music. We are each a rich world, completely different from each other. It is so amazing to think that each one of us has a world that is unique, with its own characteristic, its own beauty, its own nature, its own music, etc. But if I want to get to know you, I'm going to have to leave the world called Hedy with my own opinions and my own history and my own depth and my own character and my own nature, whatever it is that is in my world. And I need to cross the bridge, fully present, curious, available, really compassionate and empty of my world, cross that bridge to land in yours, to get to know you. And so I can learn you only when I land in your world. And so what we teach is the art of hosting. How do I take you into my world? How do I show you me? How do I even learn more about me because I'm hosting you? So I'm even more conscious of who I am because I'm showing me to you in my world. And the art of visiting. How do I leave my world 100% and come and listen to you fully? So that's the art of visiting and the art of hosting over the bridge to each other. And that's the second invisible connector. And the third invisible connector is called the encounter. The encounter. The encounter are those magical moments where we feel really connected soul to soul. And those magical moments happen in nature, for example. You can walk in nature and suddenly you're in the zone of the encounter, and nature has never been as beautiful. the colors and the smells and the shapes, and you're just totally imbued with everything you see and hear and smell and touch. That's the zone of the encounter in nature. And it can happen to us in music. You can hear a piece of music you've heard a million times, and yet this time you're in the zone of the encounter with that piece of music, and it brings tears to your eyes. You hear it like you've never heard it before. I remember listening to Beethoven's Ninth Symphony when the wall, in Germany, you called it the Easter, I don't remember the name of that wall, but the wall fell down, and Bernstein was conducting the Ninth Symphony, and I've heard the Ninth Symphony, but this time I was in the zone of the encounter, feeling that whole sense of Zeit und Schlungen, Millionen, embrace each other, millions of people. I was really in the zone of the encounter. And the way these three invisible connectors are connected to each other is that when we honor the space between us and we cross the bridge to know the other, we create the conditions for the encounter. And so our purpose as humans on this planet is to embrace those three invisible connectors, really honor the space, and that includes climate, it includes everything. Really honor the space between us, cross the bridge to each other to know each other deeply, soul to soul, and enter that zone of the encounter where there are no more boundaries in terms of the depth of our connection.
When you spoke about the encounter, it sounds a little bit like grace. That's how I would describe grace.
Like grace, indeed. And we all know it. We all have had those moments of grace. And even a sports team can enter the zone of the encounter. And when they do, they win, even if they're not the best team. But suddenly they are in that state of grace with each other. And the way they play is beyond what they even know they're capable of.
So how did you find out about this, the space, the bridge, the encounter?
Okay. It's a very long journey. And Yumi and I started that journey because as a psychologist, a psychotherapist, I realized I was closer to the people I worked with. And I'm now not talking about couples, individuals. I was closer to them, safer with them than I was with my own husband. There was something the matter. And they were closer and safer with me than they were with their partner. So one day I came home and I said to Yumi, there's something weird that we have to change. I want to be as close and safe with you as I am with the people that I work with. And he understood that and he was willing. And we started a real journey of learning. And we learned many, many approaches to couples therapy, to relationship, to life in general. We went on a journey of learning. And it slowly but surely evolved into this encounter center transformation. And the reason it's called transformation is because the neurobiology of the brain, the research into the brain shows that our brain transforms the most through deep connection. The new neural pathways that form in the brain form the most when we are in deep connection. And so it was very clear to us as we evolved that deep connection biologically is the most important thing, not psychologically, biologically. So our brain transforms and we are able to be relationally intelligent and relationally mature. And so it's been a real evolution for us, integrating so many models, so many thoughts and science to arrive at this encounter-centered transformation.
It's beautiful. And you say that people meet and join in couples. the most incompatible people meet and they attract each other and they fall in love with each other. Do you feel this is always the case?
I'll tell you, it's interesting, your question. It's true that incompatible people do fall in love with each other when they meet and marry each other because one is alive in areas that the other one is disconnected from. And we recognize in the other that part of us that we are disconnected from, and we bring it to ourselves to be whole. And so, if we do the work together, those places where we are incompatible help each one of us become whole. And so that choice is a very natural one. It's a healing choice to welcome in your life one who's alive in the places you are disconnected. When we make a choice as a more mature person, and sometimes, as a human, we'll choose somebody when we are more mature. The more mature we are, the less that incompatibility is what we are going for. So as a really mature person, we will choose somebody with whom we can build something or have a joint project of something, and often there is deep compatibility. But at the time we find a partner and we're young. Yes, we get into this beautiful incompatibility that allows us to become whole.
And it usually brings us back to our childhood and to our caretakers.
It brings us back. So I'm going to give a little metaphor here. So to talk about childhood, when Yumi and I taught couples together, and now that I do it by myself, one metaphor we use is the metaphor of the neighborhoods. So you are a big world. You, Kasia, you're a big world, and you're an expanding world because you're very open to learning and bringing newness into your life. So your world is expanding, and it's filled with neighborhoods. So there are many, many neighborhoods in your world, in my world. One of the neighborhoods is the neighborhood of childhood. And it's a very important neighborhood because it integrates with so many of the other neighborhoods of our world, that neighborhood of childhood. And so when I work with couples, I help them, assist them in crossing the bridge to the neighborhood of childhood. And they meet, mother, father, sister, brother, grandmother, whoever was there in childhood and had a real impact. And something I love to do is to teach couples how to take a time machine. And the partner takes a time machine back to the childhood of their partner so that they can be an advocate, an ally, a real supporter of the child that their partner once was. And there is now research called memory reconsolidation, that your memory in childhood consolidates a certain way. But if you get new images into that same childhood, your memory reconsolidates. It is a new memory. And so when the partner comes in with that time machine and talks to the mother and the father and to you, the memory reconsolidates because for the first time you're not alone. For the first time you have a supporter. For the first time somebody says, "You're wonderful and I can see you." And somebody values you, sees you, acknowledges you, basic needs that sometimes were not met in childhood.
Like science proves now that it's not actual trauma that leaves that mark on us, but that we were alone, left alone in this.
That's such an important piece of research you are bringing in here, because that's why the memory reconsolidation is so important. That finally, someone who loves you, someone who cherishes you, finally steps into the very childhood that you were going through and speaks as an advocate and loves you there and sees you there. And suddenly you're not alone. You were very alone going through everything you went through. Suddenly you have an ally. And the ally says, and I'm going to meet you in the future and I'm going to marry you. It's like, wow, not only are you my advocate now, you're going to be my advocate in the future also.
Beautiful. I was I was watching one of your recordings about how you prepare for a session with couples, and it was really touching because it sounded like you treat this as like a ceremony almost.
It's very, very true. It is like a ceremony because we're building a sanctuary, that the relationship really is a sanctuary, and we're preparing a sanctuary. And I just had an experience. I was invited to Israel to teach a training for therapists and to do a workshop for couples where one is a soldier right now. And a lot of people came. So 260 therapists came to the training. I've never faced a room of 260 therapists, and 140 couples came. I've never faced a room of 140 couples. And part of my preparation always is that I bless the chairs. I bless the chairs people are sitting in because it's a sacred space, and already preparing it through blessing that comes, through my heart, whatever I feel I want to bless the chair with,
That's a
already
lot of
create.
chairs.
Say it again.
That's a lot of
Yeah.
chairs.
So this is the first time that I thought, can I bless 260 chairs? And I decided, yes, I can. And I got up early, and for the training, I blessed 260 chairs. And for the workshop, I blessed 240 chairs. And if you had said to me, Hedy, can you bless that many chairs? I would have said, no, that's impossible. But I gave myself the time because the blessing of the chairs is such a big part of creating that sanctuary we're going to be creating.
Thank you for that. And how do you prepare yourself internally? Could you share a little bit of that?
Yeah. Yeah. So, now that I work on Zoom, I didn't used to work on Zoom. But now that I work on Zoom, I take my time before I meet the couple. And in that time, I talk with God, actually. Just be with me. Just bless me. Just give me right now the capacity to be in the holy now with this couple, in the holy now with this couple. Patience. Give me Give me the sense of the blessing this moment is in my life with them, in their life with me. And I write on little pieces of paper all the things that I'm inspired, that I want to feel blessed with in the session with that couple. Now, when I used to work in the room, I used to come in and to make sure that all the plants are fully alive and cut the dead parts because, that's what we're doing for the relationship. We're making sure it's fully alive and we're really cutting off the dead parts. So I would start with the plants and I would make sure the room was beautiful. And I'm looking at your room with these wonderful plants you have. It's a beautiful environment that you have. And it's very clear, just stepping into your environment, that every detail, I'm looking around right now, every detail matters to you. And that is really how I prepare the space, as if it's a lived-in space. It used to be in a boardroom of a hotel, but as if it's my lived-in space, I would bring flowers and, create just an atmosphere. Take out whatever doesn't belong, even clean the carpet, whatever it was, to make sure the space is profoundly welcoming, orderly, grounded. Yeah.
And what would you do with the couples? Because it looks like the couples work with each other and you are just
Correct.
holding space there.
Correct. Yes. So I now have a structure that I do at this point on Zoom because since COVID, that is what has happened. I work with couples on Zoom, and I must tell you, I never expected that could work, but I'm finding out the soul doesn't care that it's Zoom. It feels the flow of connection. And so I do a journey that starts always with what is your wildest dream? What is your deepest aspiration? What do you really, really, really want in your heart for this relationship? And I take 3 wishes from each one of the couple partners, and we put those 6 wishes on the horizon because that's the direction that we want to go into, is the wildest dream and the deepest aspiration on the horizon. We're going north. We're going in that direction. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is a distinction between what I call the dance of survival, where we are reactive, where we feel in danger, where our defenses rise up, dance of survival, versus dance of life in connection. And the way I teach couples about the dance of survival is I say to them, I'd love you to talk about the toughest subject you have in your relationship, but just for 13 minutes. And I'm going to count those 13 minutes. Now, the reason I chose 13 is because in Hebrew, every letter has a numerical value. And 13 is ahava, which means love, and echad, which means one. And so I say to the couple, if you're going to have a tough conversation, might as well be in the name of love and oneness. So they have that tough conversation with each other. And there are themes, same sort of themes in every country that couples have a tough conversation about. But then when the 13 minutes are up, I say, stop. And I ask them to look at me. I said, let's pretend you were in a restaurant. And that couple, the one who just spoke for 13 minutes, was in the restaurant, and you were looking at them, but somebody whispered in your ear, this couple comes from another planet. And that planet is called Wygelia. And so they are Wygelians, and they speak Wygelian, so you didn't understand a word they were saying. And so we're separating, as you see, the content from the process. And what I'm asking them is really to watch the process. And they suddenly see a dance in which one of them withdraws and becomes quiet and turns around, and the other one pushes and speaks more, and this one retracts even more. And the dance of survival, which is the same for most couples, shows itself. And we like to call it the turtle and the hailstorm. So the turtle is the person who withdraws and constricts their energy, and the hailstorm is the one who gets louder and speaks more. And every couple in every country seems to have a version of that energetic survival dance. It's automatic. The brain says danger, and you defend. And so the couple, for the first time, they see their dance separate from content, because it doesn't matter what the content is, that's the dance, and it always disconnects you. I have a couple who, when they learned about their dance of the Wygelians, they came home and they told their 3 children, every once in a while your mother and father disappears, and who shows up? Wygelians from another planet, extraterrestrials. We are inviting you to make a drawing of extraterrestrials. So the children made these drawings, and the parents put it on the fridge, and they said, anytime you see us doing our Wygelian dance, we give you permission to take us to the refrigerator, show us who we are now, and we promise we're coming back to your loving parents. So, that is just international. It's a club of surviving couples. And once that's clear to the couple, I begin to teach them the 3 invisible connectors. And that's when they step into crossing the bridge to each other and developing the art of hosting, the art of visiting into the neighborhoods. And each time they do a visit, they get closer and closer. It's very interesting. Yesterday, I did work with a couple whose survival dance was virulent. It was scary, actually. And they are now in the place where they're learning to cross the bridge. And they went to the neighborhood yesterday of appreciation. And the husband, who really in the survival dance is such a tough guy, yesterday in the neighborhood of appreciation, he sobbed about how much he loves his wife. And she's over the bridge, and she never in her life expected that the love he has for her is so deep that that tough guy, the survival tough guy, will be actually crying about his love. So once we begin the art of visiting and the art of hosting, we visit many neighborhoods. Next time, this very couple is going to visit a neighborhood of challenge. We start always with what I call a precious neighborhood, where you feel like you're yourself, you are who you really are. Like your precious neighborhood is doing this program, is one of your precious neighborhoods, and you love being in that neighborhood. One of my precious neighborhood is teaching and speaking about exactly what I'm speaking about. And in those neighborhoods, we have energy, we are in our essence. And that's the neighborhood we start with because in those neighborhoods are our strength and resources. And so I like to start with the strength and resources to teach the art of hosting and the art of visiting. But then we go to a neighborhood of challenge. And so those are also important. And the neighborhood of childhood that I told you about. So the neighborhood of a core need. What's one of my core needs in this relationship? So, and once you visit a childhood, the core need becomes understood. Of course, that's a core need. I now know the story of your life as a child. So that's what we do, with couples.
And can every couple learn that?
So that's a very good question. Before I start with a couple, I do a consult, sort of a free consult for them to get to know me to get to know them. And I only work with couples who, once they know the program, are committed to it. You see, I step into this journey with a couple who says, I want this. So I don't know if every couple can, because you see, unless you're committed to a new way of life, to a new journey, to a new system of thinking, three invisible connectors, soul to soul encounter, unless it speaks to you, I don't know. So I can't answer the question because every couple that comes to do this journey wants to do it.
And do they always stay together or sometimes they separate?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question. When we do the vision and the aspirations that we put on the horizon, if the vision isn't compatible, if what one wants is so absolutely contradictory to what the other one wants, when that occurs, couples realize maybe they don't have the same horizon that they want to walk to together. And so sometimes I will do with them the goodbye process, which is a beautiful process in which they learn about all the good things, all the bad things, and all the dreams to which they say goodbye. And what's so amazing is that sometimes when they do say goodbye in that beautifully conscious way, they make a decision to get back together in a new way, in a conscious way. You see, not every couple, but quite a few, once they know how to connect in this way, they learn it through the goodbye process, but they're learning to be close. Some of them say, well, let's start all over again. Let's do our next marriage in a conscious way.
Mm. Yeah. So speaking about goodbyes, I would like to go back into what you shared with us at the beginning about you, me, crossing the
Oh,
bridge, this huge rainbow bridge.
yes, yes,
How is this grief for you? You said that you are missing him and that
yes.
you feel him
I miss him
with you.
terribly. And you know, grief is a lifelong journey, I realize, because everything I experience that's completely new for me, blessing 260 chairs, for example, it's a new experience. I experienced it without my beloved. And so grief seems to be this ongoing process. It doesn't, people will say, well, it's gonna get better. It's gonna get deeper. It's gonna get bigger. It's because my love for him is growing. Just having him there, the way I felt him as I blessed the chairs, I both missed him, but also felt him. And so I missed his real eyes and his real hand and his physical presence. And I felt him there supporting this process of sanctifying the space for that big group of couples that was coming. Many of them had lost somebody on October 7th during that terrorist attack, and some of them had lost a child in the war. So the group that was coming really needed blessing, and I felt Yumi there. And it was a first for me to also enter Israeli society after the big trauma that they are going through, have gone through. And so I miss him more. I didn't know it's going to be lifelong, and I'm welcoming the grieving. It's my love for my man. I just welcome the grieving. I discover the grieving. And a big love is a big loss. So, yeah.
Yes, in the movie you were sharing how Yumi was diagnosed with some problem with his heart, and he still insisted on going for
Right,
teaching. And then you
right,
realized that
exactly.
you were afraid of losing him, and that's what made you get into your triggers and
Yes,
mm,
exactly.
and
Oh, it's
that's
so nice that you've watched it with your soul and you keep knowing the content of it in such a deep, soulful way.
yeah.
Thank you. I didn't realize you were the one who did the translation of the documentary. That is so special for me to meet you.
Thank you. But then when I learned about Yumi's crossing, I thought that fear of yours, that it came true, and that probably it's a huge transition when you are with someone in such a deep way every day in this encounter so many times. It's hard
It-
to imagine how one goes on and into joy again and into flourishing. And I believe that that's what you are learning to do.
right? I have promised him. It's a promise, I will be fully alive and I will honor you every day and I will miss you every day and I will be fully alive. And full aliveness is everything. It's joy and sadness. It's pain and exhilaration. It's everything. And so I'm embracing. I'm embracing everything.
And do you have a connection with him right now? Do you speak to
In,
him? Do you hear
in,
him?
I do. I speak to him loud. I say, Yumchik, be with me in this moment. It's a terrible moment for our world. Be with me. And if you have any influence where you are, please, please do something for us. Yeah, I talk to him.
Mhm.
Yeah. He even one time, but in a long time not, but in the beginning, he suddenly showed up one time at the door of the bedroom. And there he was. It was breathtaking, and then he disappeared. It was a breathtaking moment. He has not since then, but he did that time, which was amazing.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. I used to love a man who died. It was 15 years ago, but we were together just for a year and a half. But after he died, I could clearly hear him talking to me, and then he would come through different people. People would come call me randomly, and they would say, "It never happened to me, but Robert just came, and this is the message that he wanted to."
Oh,
And all
yes,
those messages were one message. It was the same message. It
yes.
was really incredible. And then
What
I
was
was in Hawaii, and this man I didn't know comes to me, and he says, "Did you lose someone close recently?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "There is this man standing next to you, and he wants you to know that you are protected and you are guided at all times."
wow.
Mhm.
So that was the message, protected and guided at all times. You know, it's interesting. I have next to me here uh, a friend of mine. He came to her. She's sort of a medium, you know, and he says, "My sweetest, darling, precious Kuchki, I am with you and I hear you every heart thought from this other shore." So it's a whole message about what he expects me to do, because he expects me, he says, "We are still on the same train. Indeed, all of humanity is. Be brave, my Kuchki, and complete the work we came to do." So
Yeah,
I
so you have to.
certainly, exactly, I can't disappoint him. Yes,
This is beautiful that you are embracing this journey with all of its
yes,
colors.
all of what it gives me. And you know, he leaves me feathers. Did your beloved?
Robert, I saw hawks a lot, and I knew that each time I saw hawk, that was a message.
That's it, you see, he leaves me feathers. And I went to Jerusalem. Have you been to Jerusalem?
I have once. Mhm.
So, have you been to the Wailing Wall, the Western Wall? I went to pray, and you know, the women are on one side, the men on the other side. And I was coming, and a woman was sitting there, and she gave me a feather out of the blue, meaning there she is praying. So he gives me feathers.
So that you can fly.
That's nice, yes. So I can continue to fly. That is beautiful. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, beautiful.
Uh,
And you had so many beautiful stories with him, and the way you talked together, I just loved seeing how you talked together, and that Yumi was so quiet and and you were
that's
so
right.
full of joy and so full of energy. And
Yes, and he quiet and grounded and measured, you know, exactly. Incompatible. And each one of us then learning from the other and growing more and more into our wholeness, which is really the beautiful core purpose, is to grow into our wholeness. And you know, what we discovered was that if we consciously create the encounter again and again and again, suddenly we stepped into the zone of the encounter where there's absolutely no conflict. I mean, it was amazing. We entered into a place where we were at all times deeply connected, period. And you know, one time we were in an Uber, and the Uber driver says, "You guys aren't married, are you?" And so Yumi says, "Well, we just met." And then he said, 57 years ago. And the guy was laughing. He couldn't imagine that the energy that he felt between us, which was from the zone of the encounter, could be between a married couple.
it's beautiful and sad at the same time.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. And I'm very grateful that we reached that place together, that I know it exists.
So you didn't have any conflict whatsoever?
Once we stepped into the zone of the encounter, no. I mean, it's another dimension in which you're just always deeply connected and flowing with each other and deeply loving, and that's it. That's the energy. And we didn't know it. We didn't know it existed. But we were very committed to cross the bridge and create an encounter and cross the bridge, create an encounter and use every conflict. I don't know if you know the story of when we went to Austria to do our first workshop there, because Yumi said that we should go to Austria and Germany because both of us, having gone through the Holocaust time, we didn't want to have contact with Austrians and Germans. And he said, if we don't cross the bridge to Austrians and Germans, we are not walking our talk. So we went, and our first workshop in Austria, in Vienna, it was Friday, and Friday evening, as Jewish people, we light our Shabbat candles. And so Yumi said, let's light the candles with the whole workshop. And I said, no, 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 not yet, because you do it when the sun sets. No, 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 not yet. And we began to have a conflict in front of the group. And we then went to our room. We lit the candles there, not with the group. And then we crossed the bridge to each other. And we landed in the neighborhood of terror. We were both terrified. So Yumi got kind of rigid and I got kind of diffuse about the candles. And we both realized it came from who's in the room, whose father, grandfather was a Nazi, we were just terrified to be there. So the next day, a Saturday, Yumi stood up in front of the group and he said, you probably all noticed that Hedy and I were in conflict yesterday. And the whole group, yeah, yeah. And he said the conflict was about our Shabbat candles, that we usually light them when the sun sets. And we had a conflict about it because I wanted to do it and Hedy didn't. And we crossed the bridge and we landed in how afraid we are of you and how we think who is in your family and who killed Jews and is your grandfather a Nazi. And a man got up, a tall man with blonde hair. He came and he looked at Yumi straight in the eyes and he said, I am the grandson of a Nazi and you are a visible Jew. And I come to thank you for coming to be with us. And he started to sob and he puts his head on Yumi's shoulder and Yumi's hugging him and then Yumi is also sobbing. And slowly the whole workshop came and we were in a big circle sobbing together. I mean, that unified encounter of humanity. And here we were, you know. And so conflict after conflict in crossing and encountering the way even that Vienna encounter with the whole workshop was slowly but surely we entered that zone. But it was conflict after conflict after conflict, visit after visit after visit.
How many years of those conflicts and
Oh,
visits?
many years. I would say easily 15, 18 years of visiting and conflict and visiting. Yeah.
And yet it's possible. So it gives hope.
Yes. Yes. That we are wired actually to live in the encounter zone. As humans, we're wired to live there, really, you know.
Could you speak a little bit about your mother's good eye?
Are you thinking of a special story?
I'm thinking about the story with the Nazi because you just mentioned.
Yes, 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 yes. Well, she deeply believed in the goodness of humanity. She deeply believed in it. And my parents lived in Antwerp, Belgium, and the Nazis came into Antwerp, Belgium, and began to round up the Jews. And my mother and father were in a line of Jewish people who were pushed into a truck that was going to take them to camps. And my mother decided, when I get close to that young Nazi officer who's going, schnell, schnell, fast, 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 pushing, she says, I'm going to look at him and I'm going to see his essence. I'm going to see the goodness in him. I'm going to see his heart. And so she prepared herself, really looking at him and seeing his humanity. And when she got close there, she looked straight in his eyes and she said, let us all go. And the way she looked, the tone of her voice, the expression in her face, he took it in and he let this whole group go. So part of her knowing the humanity of that man is why I am here today. It's like when we know each other's humanity, miracles occur.
Do you believe that we all are born good?
I do believe that we all are born good, and that our surroundings and the story of our journey will either keep us in our humanity, or our survival pattern is going to get bigger and bigger till it hides our humanity. And once it hides our humanity, we are 100% in our survival pattern. And wars are about one survival pattern against another. It isn't never the humanity of anyone. Yes, I believe there is that distinction between who we are as people in our goodness, our kindness, our creativity, our intelligence, all those qualities of humanity, on and on and on and on. And all of us develop survival patterns that create our survival dance. And war is the ultimate of that survival dance.
Yes. Speaking about intelligence, 7 languages. It's mind-blowing to me.
We taught in four. We taught in four languages. So French and English and Hebrew and one more, German. French, English, Hebrew, and German. Those were the ones we could teach in. We both speak other languages, but we would not be able to teach in them because they are not fluent enough, for teaching.
Okay, so thank you. Is there anything you would like to add before we complete?
Well, I just want to tell you how much I've enjoyed your listening skill, your deep presence with everything that I was sharing. I could feel energetically how powerfully embracing of everything I said you are. Sometimes the emotion also brought some tears. You are a magnificent listener. You crossed the bridge. That's what you did. You crossed the bridge to me, and you left Kasia, in that beautiful, but you left really who you were when we started, and you arrived on this side. And like when you really visit, when you come back, you are transformed. I can feel that you took things in so deeply that things in you have shifted and changed. That's really visiting. If you're not transformed, you haven't visited. But if you are transformed, you have visited, and you have really visited. And it nourishes me deeply. I'm very grateful.
So let's close our eyes again and just take everything that was said and everything that was felt and all the thoughts and all the feelings that are moving through you. Just embrace them with your presence, coming back into your world, taking all the jewels, taking all the shifts, everything that is still moving in you. And just breathe a few times into that space, into that new space, transformed, reorganized. It's a little bit like little snowflakes that are finding space inside. But snowflakes of gold and diamond and rose quartz. So take a little deeper breath into your belly, and whenever you are ready, open your eyes. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Kasia.
I sincerely recommend Hania and Witek's work. They are students of Hedy, and I will put the details down below in the information about this interview. Hania also translated a book, Getting the Love You Want, Zdobądź miłość, jakiej pragniesz, and the details will be below too. So happy reading and happy encounters.